Sorry. Now, what page are you referring to?
So you have to kind of go to 127 and check. So the problem with the minister's submissions as comments is that there's recommendations that aren't recommendations that are included in the text. So in the text in relation to quarries, there's a number of things that they've commented on that they want us to respond to that we don't have any response.
That's right, we are responding only to the recommendations. We have to have particular regard to the Minister's comments and the recommendations.
Yeah, so this is his comment, and I just personally think in terms of, I support what we're doing around the quarrying, trying to justify our position, but I think it is useful to respond to his comments around those dates and the housing.
Which page is that, sorry, Councillor?
64 of the agenda, 53 of the government's comments, and paragraph 282.
If you refer to page 138 of your table, there is a discussion that does respond to the Minister's comments in relation to dates for cessation of quarrying in the rural quarry zone. So we have responded, and there's a discussion there, and the recommendation is that we add some additional analysis to our section 32. We believe that the data, that data is based on research and latest data that we had commissioned as part of this development of this chapter. It was referenced already in the section 32, so we're just suggesting or recommending that we will add to that discussion to make sure that the reasoning is well covered off and justified.
But it doesn't relate back to the rules that we have under 17.6. It's talking about a different section.
Sorry, I'm having difficulty following where you are reading from.
Okay, so on the agenda,
Yeah.
That's in the Minister's comments.
64 or 53 of the Minister's comments, paragraph 282.
Yeah, 64 of the agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paragraph 282. There's specific reference to certain rules.
Um, 17.6.2.1.
They're probably easier to look at 17.6.2.3 because there is the rules actually written there. That's on page 127 of the spiral. So the date remains the same.
Oh, prior to the 30th of April,
Yeah.
2018.
But there's no discussion as to why that time frame's appropriate or justified as per the Minister's comments.
Issues of clarity exist in relation to quarries in this proposal. They should not be arbitrarily limited to 2018. The need for new houses in a quarry zone needs an explanation. The limitation of 17.6.2.3 to April 2018 needs to be justified. What is the purpose of the 30th of April 2018?
Just to clarify, back when we last spoke to you about the provisions, one of the key issues that this district plan review was trying to address was rehabilitation of quarries and making sure that quarry sites are rehabilitated. And we had some concern about the importation of materials that aren't excavated from the site, so quarry gravels that are excavated from somewhere else being brought into an existing quarry and processed. So the effect of that is to potentially extend the life of a quarry indefinitely. So that date, that April 2018, is an earthquake recovery concession, basically. So saying we accept that there are some benefits to that, particularly in earthquake recovery, but after 2018 we want to have the ability to assess those sort of proposals and an ability to decline them so that they can't happen in perpetuity. And in terms of the evidence for that, I think the table does.
Yeah. It's actually page 141 of your table. We do discuss it.
Right, 141.
But quite briefly, because the Section 32 report considers it in quite a bit more detail. So effectively all we're saying is that we have covered it, we have assessed it, it is in our Section 32 report, but perhaps we could provide some further analysis if necessary. But other than that, no change.
So which particular one has the date? Sorry, I can't.
Are you talking about the rule or the minister's?
No. The minister's made a comment,
Yep.
and I just want to see your response to that comment.
So on page 141. What's it there?
Yeah, I know, I was just looking for the minister's comment, it's under this one.
So the last row on page 141, where it says rural, chapter 17, rural quarry zone, auxiliary aggregates processing activities, P2. And then we say the Section 32 report, including the background report, sets out the basis for the 2018 limitation.
Oh,
on
right, sorry.
da,
Okay.
da, da, da. So we cover it off there.
The final question for me is, or the amendment is to recommendation pages 122 to 129, change the deletion of striking out shall not be publicly notified.
Sorry, what's this?
Do not delete the public notification clauses.
Where's this? What page?
So that's under the previous recommendation 113, where we talked about the excavation to the 1 metre. So the effect, on page 127 to 129, so the effect of the resolution that has just been made is that those changes won't be undertaken. So because we're reverting back to non-complying activity, we won't need to undertake the proposed revision of wording with all the strikeouts. So because it's coming back as a non-complying activity, the public notification clause will be retained.
I just think it's very good to be formally, just because we formally specify changing the discretionary to non-complying. I think we need to be really clear about also changing the public notification.
Okay, that's what I had meant by any consequential amendment, but you could add on that, including the notification.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, the one up the top, the 6.2.1, after the words "and any consequential amendments."
In brackets, put including.
Yeah.
Including restoration of the public notification.
Great, fantastic, thank you.
Provisions. Yeah. No, it's fine. She accepts that. Yeah, that's a good process. All right, so given that we've now lost her for a while, let's go back to page 1 and let's just work through the document. And what I propose that we do is that we're...
A bit late. Have we covered all the key...
No, just the quarrying so far.
I thought we had...
What we're going to do is we're going to go through the document. We're going to tick off the ones that we're good with, and anything that we've got, a flag on, then we'll come back and deal with at the end, because they'll be the contentious issues.
Okay.
But we've done the quarrying one now, and we've identified the SAMs and the other one.
Can I just... Why don't we turn to things like the SAMs now then, just to get them out of the way, because we'll have agreement on those.
Yeah, I think Vicky wanted to be here, that's all.
I see.
She was going to try and get back. So
Okay.
let's
No,
just...
that's fine.
Shoot through the paper, but the idea is that we just basically sign off all of the ones that are straightforward, simple, clear, easy to resolve, and then we'll sort of deal with the flagged issues at the end. All right? So eyes down and looking. Page 1, recommendation 1. That one's the officer recommendation is in line with
Straightforward.
the.
It's just keeping a
Ministers.
policy in there.
So that's a tick. Recommendation 2, consider the use of CCC. Oh, sorry, that's on page 2.
Page 2, you might want to consider whether or not you agree with not accepting the minister's comment.
So it's a bit difficult because this one's over the page. Consider the use of other regulatory and planning processes where there is possible duplication, but
Oh no, that one was straightforward.
that is straightforward.
Yes, that's straightforward.
Yeah.
The next one down on page 2, whether you agree.
Retain sale of liquor, alcohol, subsection of general rules chapter.
So the Minister recommended removing this subsection because of duplication with the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act, but this recommendation gives reasons for retaining those provisions in the district plan.
Well, it's just that we're going to notify the local alcohol plan this week, so do you think that would make a difference?
Well, the provisions in the district plan are complementary to what's in the local alcohol policy. So the Minister is recommending, because we have a local alcohol policy would be a better approach to dealing with those issues. But actually, even the proposed local alcohol policy is complementary to what is in the district plan. So I'm recommending retaining the district plan provisions for that reason.
But why do we need to have the sale of alcohol provisions in the plan? What do they add to the plan?
So the local alcohol policy doesn't have specific rules around where on licenses can be located. And what the district plan rules do is restrict sale of alcohol after 11 p.m. within 75 meters of a residential zone. So what it does in some of the smaller centres is effectively require them to close at 11 p.m. rather than continuing to sell until the national hours.
So the district plan introduces regulation that's related to the land use activity. So it has a restriction on location and noise in relation to operation in that sense. That's what the hours of operation are about. That's correct.
It's consistent with what's in the local alcohol policy, and there's also provisions in the central city that are also consistent with what's in the local alcohol policy.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I may.
It'll be 1 a.m, won't it?
Yeah, isn't it 1 a.m. or 11 a.m.?
I think it's
Sorry, 11 p.m.
It's 11 p.m. In the centres, and then in the central city there's noise and entertainment precincts which have different hours, and some of those are 1 a.m.
So what happens if this is surely the lap is the better way to go about that, because I can just see so many anomalies that if someone's living in we're not going to have high rise, but say an apartment complex which is near an entertainment precinct, to then say that there was an area over there which had to shut at 11 p.m. even though these people have made a conscious decision to live there seems nonsensical.
Sorry, what I need to explain is that you haven't had the Central City chapter come to you yet,
Yeah.
and that has its own set of rules. So this set of rules here is for everywhere else in the city, but not for the Central City. So there's likely to be the 1 p.m. rule in the rules for the Central City.
But this is only applying to this.
But this is only applying to everywhere else
Outside
in the
of the 4
city.
avenues.
Pardon me?
So that's outside of the 4 avenues.
This is everywhere outside of the 4 avenues, yes.
I'm
Because
just wondering
So that would say that
whether,
the Wonder Bar would have to shut at 11 p.m.
given that we're
Like say in
coming,
Littleton.
given that we're coming back to the plan next Wednesday, I'm wondering whether we could get an update on this, because you wouldn't have known that we're going to approve the LAP for notification tomorrow. So, and I kind of want to see what happens.
okay. We can bring it back to you next Wednesday, as you say, as we're coming back to you then anyway.
It's just that, yeah, I mean, I guess that what I don't understand is why it can't all be dealt with in the local alcohol plan rather than...
The local alcohol policy, as I understand it, is under the Local Government Act.
Yeah, no,
And
it's
it
under
does-
the Sale and Supply of
Oh,
Alcohol Act.
Sorry, but it can't put in place land use rules. Only the district plan can do that. And these rules are relating to the land use activity of selling alcohol, which is location and hours of operation because of the noise, etc., and the difficulties that can go with hours of operation.
So that means that in Riccarton you can't, because there's a residential property over the road, you can't operate after 11 p.m. at night.
Well, it depends on the location. It needs to be within 75 metres of a residential area, so if it's far enough away, then it would still be able to. And it only requires a consent for it to continue selling
Right.
beyond that hour.
Okay. Yeah.
So just a question, how would that relate on the Banks Peninsula where we've got the commercial mixed use zones? So I noticed as I came in, Jamie mentioned the Wonder Bar in Littleton. And Littleton's a good case in point where we would hope that the future local economy of Littleton would be based on hospitality and entertainment as key parts of the economic development there. But the very nature of the area that the Wonder Bar, for example, is in, is that it's a commercial residential mix from a zoning viewpoint. By taking this precinct approach, we inevitably, as I understand it, make it more difficult for a late night licensed business to establish in such a place, or even to make changes to its operation in such a place, despite that's run in the past, without any real problems.
It will depend on the size of the centre. So if the centres are large enough that there's lots that are more than 75 metres from that boundary with residential, which I think is clarified that mixed use isn't within that definition of residential, but I can check and clarify that. The other consideration is in the Christchurch Central Recovery Plan. There's some objectives and policies around trying to direct these activities into the noise and entertainment precincts in the central city. So that's part of the direction that we need to be consistent with in the CCRP.
So we can come back to you and just check, for example, where the Wonder Bar sits and whether it is within 75 metres of a residential property.
So can I just ask one more on that? Just when you see these things there, I'm not going to be able to actually think of everything, and you can never find perfect. I know that doesn't exist, but generally, if you're going out with friends or something like that, it's quite normal on Saturday night to pop out for dinner, meet at 8 o'clock at a restaurant or something. Dinner comes out at sort of 9. If you're at Trevino's or something where you've got residential literally within that 75 metres, they couldn't shut up shop. You could be getting, having dessert or something at 11 o'clock. It seems, would this fall into that and say you just couldn't do that then unless you were situated in a Soul Square type party zone?
Sorry.
This is to do with the sale of alcohol only. It's not closing the restaurant.
No. So it means that you couldn't have a glass of wine at 11:01 with
They
dinner?
would be able to provide it, yeah.
No,
This is
on
only
licence.
the on licenses?
On licence.
Yeah.
One thing at a time. So you couldn't, if you were out with friends on a Saturday night in Trevino's, then it's in a hub outside of the CBD. They couldn't serve at 11:01 a glass of wine while you're having dessert or something on a Saturday.
They would need a consent to be able to sell after 11 p.m.
They can.
They would need a consent.
A consent to
Yeah.
do that. Okay. Okay, so it's just discretionary.
But we're not talking about the central city here?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
All right, so let's just have some further feedback on the post lap. So if the lap goes through, do we still need to have this legal framework?
I'd like to get some more legal backgrounding on that.
Yeah.
My understanding is that you would, simply because of what the LAP can and can't do, and the district plan is the vehicle for land use rulings, but I'd like to get some more legal advice on that.
Just point me to where the minister's comments were on the sale of liquor, or sale of alcohol, sorry.
Paragraph 19, recommendation 6.
19, recommendation 6. Oh,
Is around
right up the front.
reconsidering the use of other planning processes to avoid duplication, such as the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act.
Yeah, but where's the actual? Then they go through all the different things.
Paragraph 19 and 19.
I mean, they obviously think that it's enough. Do other district plans have these provisions in the district plan as well?
Yes, some do. I'm certainly aware of a couple that do. On the, if you're looking for the Minister's comments on it, if you look into attachment 1, which is the Minister's comments,
Yeah.
and you go to the 4th page, which is under the, on the numbering on the top right-hand corner, page 15.
Yeah, no, I see that,
Right.
but I haven't seen the detail around the sale of liquor act. I mean, the sale of alcohol.
Detail around that. Okay. Paragraph 152. 152. No, it's not.
Oh, here we go. Right.
Oh, 152. Yep. That's where it's talked about.
Yeah, so what he's saying is the Section 32 analysis confirms the use of this part of the draft general rules proposal to restrict trading hours in the absence of a LAP as required by the Act. The adoption of a LAP would seem to be a more appropriate method than the inclusion of this section in the draft proposal.
What I'm not clear about is what strength the LAP has to direct any land use type activities like distance away from other residential zones and things like that, and that's what I'd like to get some further legal advice on.
Okay.
Currently, does someone have to get a consent to operate at certain hours, like if they want to go past 11 o'clock, do they have to currently get a consent?
Yes, this is the same rule as is in the city plan.
Yeah.
So
maybe what the issue is that I haven't familiarised myself with the LAP for so long that maybe what it says is that it only deals with the two parts of the central city. Does it not deal with the rest of the city?
Well, the LAP deals with the entire city, but it doesn't deal with the interface between residential zones and locations where alcohol is sold. Because when they developed the local alcohol policy, they were depending on the district plan having these provisions that covered that issue. So the current draft LAP doesn't include those rules, and in order to insert them with the stage that the LAP is on at the moment would mean having to go back.
No, and we're not going to do that, but in a way, yeah, okay, all right. So it may be that really the office of reasons really need to be restricted to point 4. But anyway, let's have a look at that once we've seen what the LAP contains. And
Okay.
yeah, okay. Recommendation 3. That's all straightforward.
That's straightforward. Yep. Recommendation 4 you might want to consider, where officers are recommending revised wording. Did you want to speak to that?
So there's a recommendation by the Minister to provide for emergency services facilities. So there's 2 recommendations in response to this. One is to schedule fire stations on the Banks Peninsula, and the other is in the temporary activities to add emergency response training activities.
I don't think we should have any fire stations on the Banks Peninsula. I think you'd be okay with that.
I'm not going to disagree, but I did have one question, which was that the Littleton Fire Station is missing from Appendix 1. You've got all the other ones that I can think of there, but Littleton is missing from the appendix.
Because the Littleton Fire Station is in the industrial general zone, which is already permitted for emergency services facilities, so there was no reason to schedule it. The scheduling gives additional development rights for fire stations when they're in residential zones. But because it's in an industrial zone, it didn't require scheduling.
What a great answer.
About it. Sorry.
Okay, so that's a tick. Recommendation 5.
We just thought that was straightforward.
Yep. Recommendation 6.
Recommendation 4, add emergency response.
Sorry, 4?
Yeah.
You're going back there?
Well, you did the fire stations, but the ones around emergency response training activities as a permitted activity.
Yeah.
So we've had the issues in the red zone, for example. So is there any sort of notification requirements that we have attached?
It includes standards for noise, so if they were exceeding the noise limits, they'd be required to get a consent.
It's just it's pretty frightening when you see people with guns running through your neighbourhood or close to your neighbourhood. and you haven't been notified?
I mean, I think when they organise these activities, they generally have their own protocols around notification. So it's a question of whether or not we want to have a district plan rule that requires that.
Well, I think we do need some safeguards. I mean, we saw fires, I think there were some fires out in the Hallswell area over one of the exercises. We've seen people frightened and adjacent to the red zone. So I think there's an area that we can improve.
Yeah, but it's not a district plan matter. So I think that certainly as a council we might want to consider, writing to the appropriate services that were involved in those activities and advising them of the concerns of citizens. But it would be inappropriate for us to put a regulation into the district plan around those uses. We're just simply saying that it's a permitted activity, but they have to comply with noise standards.
But isn't that what we're doing by adding it into a district plan, is making it a district plan?
I think the main purpose of adding it is to clarify that it's a permitted activity, just in case there was any ambiguity about that, because we have a permitted activity for temporary military training activities. We have the noise standards for the emergency response training activities. So just to clarify that it is a permitted activity, that's I think the main reason for including it.
Okay.
So recommendation 6.
We didn't think that was controversial.
Recommendation 7.
Or 7 or 8.
7 and 8. Recommendation 9 over the page.
We thought that was straightforward. The next one we thought you might want to check that you're comfortable with is recommendation 10.
Show the 3 kilometre and 8 kilometre bird strike management areas on both the planning maps and inline maps.
So the concern that the Minister expressed here was that in some cases, because the map that we were in the draft only was showing the 3 kilometre area, and there might be some difficulty for applicants in determining if they were in the 8 kilometre area. So we've changed the map to add both areas. And they were also recommending having that as an overlay on the planning maps, but I'm not recommending that because I think there's already quite a few overlays on the planning maps, and the significance of some of the rules isn't that great.
But that will be something that's going to be easy to do when we're all digitised anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's adding a PDF inline map that people can download so they can see where the 8 kilometre area is and determine whether or not they're in that area.
Yep. All right, good.
I raised the issue around non-residential activities happening in residential areas. Are we going to come back to that?
Which one?
Is it the
Well, it's related to this 9, so that we've just quickly done. But
Sorry, what do you want to raise in 9?
so one of the issues is this is around non-residential activities occurring in or non-zoned activities happening within certain zones, and I just wanted really an understanding of what these changes actually mean in terms of our current plan or our current proposal. Because
they apply to historic activities, which when the plan rules changed from the district scheme to the district plan would have required a consent. So prior to 1995, they would have been permitted activities in residential zones. Post 1995, they would have required non-complying or discretionary consent, so things like service stations and spiritual facilities in residential zones. So what we've done is change the wording basically of the objective and policy, because we were referring to them as out-of-zone activities. But the point that the Minister made was that actually spiritual facilities shouldn't really be described as out of zone, because they've been there for quite a long time and they're appropriate in those areas. So I've changed from calling them out-of-zone activities to established activities. So it's really just a question of how they're being described in the objective and policy.
And under 6.5.111, so where we're enabling schools, for example, to expand in prime residential areas, it seems kind of counterproductive to where we want people living. So what is 6.5.111 doing?
The purpose of that is to give a policy framework for scheduled activities, which is a list of historic activities that were already existing. So
it's to make it easier for them to expand.
Yeah, it's to clarify what the purpose of the scheduling is, which is to allow them a limited envelope of expansion on the sites that they've historically been on. while still being consistent with the objectives and policies for new activities in residential, which is generally to direct them to the centres.
So we
So,
get,
so like if you wanted
like-
to knock down your church and put up a multi-storey, sort of entertainment centre, then that wouldn't be, that would have to be tested against this.
Well, the scheduling only applies to expansion of the church itself. So
Yeah.
if another activity came along and wanted to use that site...
No, I meant the church turning itself into a
celebration
multi.
churches, a good example.
They are nowadays.
So the scheduling allows them a limited amount of expansion, but not
Right.
unlimited. It's just to allow them to allow a little bit of expansion on their own site, but not to an extent that undermines.
So I don't support that.
Sorry, what's your problem with it?
Because what we've seen is that something starts out really small and then it keeps buying up the neighbouring properties. And so originally when it was established, it might have been a school with a roll of 50. It then becomes a school of 200 and it actually takes over an entire block that previously was residential that then ends up becoming completely educational. So to me it just seems a bit of a farce that, I have no problem with historic established activities being able to redevelop within their existing footprint, but what I worry about is that we're making it easier for people to expand outside of their initial footprint. And if you take residential, prime residential, high density residential, having a single story school, it just seems, that doesn't even increase the role of school, seems a really poor use of land.
These are all...
Can I just point out that
the
only thing that has changed in this is the word established.
Yeah.
You've actually signed this off for the majority of the actual objective and policy. It's just the use of the wording that has changed. You've actually signed this off as an activity.
Yeah.
And
So
what
it's
went to the ministers. The
yeah.
only thing that Alison is trying to point out to you is the change of the term within the objective and policy.
So they're removing references to out of zone
That's
and
right, to
existing
established activities.
to established activities.
That's the only change there.
So
We can't relitigate
no, we can't relitigate.
what already has gone to the minister.
So we've done 10, number 11, military training activities.
11.
That's all
did
straightforward.
Do you have any problems with that? No?
No.
Okay, we thought 12 was quite straightforward.
12.
Sorry, can we just, on 11, can we introduce a public notification?